Hello everybody, welcome back to another video where I talk about AuDHD and everything related that I noticed, at least about myself anyway. So, I've mentioned, I think in at least one other video, pretty sure you haven't seen all of them, but one time I mentioned the halo and the horn effect and how people who are on the spectrum tend to have a bit of a horn effect, more or less, that makes people react to them a certain way. People with a halo effect tend to get treated more fairly, more positively, because the people think that this person with the halo is generally good, and therefore they get better treatment. And then there's people with a horn effect, people who get treated a little bit less fairly because the people that are treating them that way have an image of them that is not positive due to the horn effect. And that can be like the stereotypical resting bitch face, or you're too direct, you're too this, you're too that, and that'll all be things that are to do with your neurodivergency. And there isn't a whole lot you can do about that. But I was thinking there are things that I have been doing regularly that also made people dislike me and that I can actually stop doing. And one of those things, for instance, is interjecting in like group chats and things like that. I have been in group chats of all sorts of different types of organizations, company group chats with different students of different trainings, group chats in like a homeowners association type thing. And I would always end up kind of getting disliked on these group chats. And it's not that I was trying to be mean or crude or anything like that, but I used to have this thing, like if somebody in a group chat would ask a question or make a comment, I would try to reply to that. And of course, our directness that we have face to face is also present when we're in a group chat. So if somebody asks a question, I'm going to answer it in the best way that I can, which of course to some people may be too direct, and particularly in text format. You cannot really tell what mood somebody's in, you can't hear their voice, so it comes off even worse than in person. And I never really understood that, and it was very frustrating. And after some time, I think it was sometime last year, or no, the year before, I was in a group chat for the apartment owners of the building that I'm in. And after once again getting a bunch of people like and giving negative responses to just the random stuff that I was saying, like not that I was talking the entire time, but whenever I see an issue, I tend to highlight that, or I'll answer questions like I said. So after some time, I got another negative response to one of my posts, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get out of here. I left the group chat, and for about a year, I wasn't in it, and I didn't really care because they had now said so many negative things towards me that I was like, you guys figure it out for yourself. I'm not going to bother anybody, and I hope nobody's going to bother me. I'm not going to get involved with any more local politics, so to speak, like local apartment politics. And then sometime after that, I was in a meeting that we had like once a year, and things were being discussed and mentioned that I didn't know was going on, and they were all like, yeah, we said that in a group chat and stuff like that. So I thought, okay, I guess I'll go back on because things are being said that I need to know about. And luckily for me, I didn't have to ask anybody to let me in because I had made the group chat originally myself, so I had the invite link still, so I just invited myself back. Kinda handy when you can do that. But instead of like reacting to everything that was being said, I just kind of read it and then left it unread and let other people talk to each other. I'd occasionally only post messages when it was really important, which wasn't very often. That made things considerably calmer because I didn't feel responsible for answering people's questions. If somebody had a question of, hey, have you seen this or that package, or what about those cars, etc., I just kind of ignore it, and everything just went fine. People resolved things by themselves, I didn't have to say anything, and my evenings and days were a lot calmer for it. Now these are people that I don't tend to talk too much. I see them every once in a while walking around the building and I'll say hi to them and that's it. It's a different matter when it's a group chat for your company, the place that you work. And there I had similar experiences. People would kind of treat me badly there if I were too active on the group chat. Of course, there the interactions also took place outside of the group chat, so I could see the irritation of the other people in real time sometimes. So after a while I also stepped back from that, not really responding unless I really needed to. And that might come across even more standoffish, but the way that they responded to whenever I was trying to interact was worse, so I just kind of left it at that. And then this year, or last year actually I should say, 2025, I'd had such a negative quote-unquote feedback session with the people in my team that I was like, you know what? Sort it out yourself. I'm going to stick to my own thing. I'm just going to do my own thing, whatever, and I'm just going to ignore whatever you guys say as much as possible. And then just the other day, a coworker of mine suddenly says like, oh, you've really changed and you're much more open and much more approachable, etc., etc. I'm thinking to myself, I don't think I've changed. I'm pretty much the same person that I was. So I don't know what he thought he was seeing. But then I thought maybe by not interacting in the group chat as much, they had less negative experiences, at least from their end. I'm just trying to be nice and like trying to answer questions and stuff and trying to be helpful, but that's not really how it's being perceived, I guess. But from their point of view, me not responding possibly gave them a more positive impression of me, that they now felt the need to compliment how I had changed. Thought that was very interesting. But in any case, not responding to these group messages unless they directly want something from you may have somewhat removed the digital horn effect, if you could call it that. Because if you already have the digital horn effect, like from real life horn effect, then not seeing your messages in a group chat probably makes them less negative of you, because you can manage your voice more in real life interactions to try and minimize the horn effect. And if you then also minimize your presence in group chats and things like that, then the negativity that they might feel towards you is manageable, I think. And of course it doesn't sound very good to have to minimize yourself anywhere, but there are just these facts, like in the workplace, if you're in a workplace, in order to keep your job, you have to just make sure to get through it as best as you can. And while I definitely do still struggle with some other people who are not my direct coworkers, but I do see them occasionally, noticing that people find me, I don't know, more tolerable when I don't put a lot of effort into group chats or emails, etc., etc., makes at least a part of it a little bit more manageable. Maybe you could give that a try to see if that makes a difference, or maybe you could take a look if there are things that you're doing automatically that you think are helpful, but that ultimately leave a negative impression somehow, because the things that we do that we think are helpful may not come across as helpful to others. It may come across as being arrogant and trying to come across as the expert on everything and stuff like that. So your intentions may not always be communicated to the person that you're talking to. That's basically my whole message. So check what you're doing and if the person really wants what you're doing for them or not. I know we have a tendency to be very helpful. We want to help everybody with everything and want to explain everything, but sometimes people just need to struggle on their own and they don't really want us explaining everything to them. That really makes them more upset, and maybe they feel babied or something. I don't know. Either way, if you could do like a little review of what it is that you're doing right now and see where you can dial that back down, particularly in a work environment or an environment where you have no choice but to be there with these people. Try playing around a little bit with your investments. Try maybe only giving people half an answer. Try not answering them at all if it's possible, and see what they do. It might actually lead to some positive changes. Either way, that was my observation about the horn effect in the digital space. Let me know what you're thinking. I'd love to read some comments. In any case, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.